Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We are doing a dual feed right now. I got a podcast camera up here, got a live feed on TikTok right here, so I can talk to the audience, interact while we upload. If you guys didn't know, this goes on Bogetti Studios podcast channel, and if you guys don't know, this is on the Bogetti Bunch TikTok, where I like to come on and record the podcast and talk to the people. And let's talk a little bit about cars. The first one is, what do you think about C5s? C5 Corvettes. Honestly, if they're not an FRC, fixed roof coupe, I don't really like the look of them. I think anything else looks kind of like grandpa spec to the max, honestly. Hate to break it to you, but that's just my feeling. As good of cars as they are, and they probably are one of the better entry-level platforms, I just think for my personal taste, I don't think that they look as good, even if they are a more usable vehicle and a more user-friendly vehicle. But, you know, it is what it is. I think the C6 obviously nailed that style, and then I think the C7, it has a weird sail panel because the glass doesn't wrap around, but still good looking. Still a C7 obviously looks better than C6. It's sharper and more aggressive. But kind of just how it works. See, this is what happens. I have a few topics here. I get derailed instantly by the chat because the chat is really fun and it's just enjoyable. I don't know how this is as a podcast listener. Hate to break it to you guys because you're not reading the chat, but I try to keep it flowing so that everybody listening has a decent listening experience, you know? If anybody has any topics of interest, you can put them in there and I'll try to write them down. Maybe not derail myself and not get the ADHD too flowing too quickly, but let's talk about some car news first. Let's first touch on World Cup. As most of you guys know, World Cup is one of my favorite events. I think the racing that they have there is awesome. The weather, the time of year, the track prep, the classes, they do such an awesome job at converging all of it and kind of the right crowd that isn't always together. You know, these cars, the domestics, the imports, they don't normally race together. So I always have to give my props to Jason Miller for keeping that event so sturdy in a way, and so steadfast on what he thinks and believes the event should be. And he's done such a great job at holding that torch for so long that it is always has to be mentioned how awesome it was and is. I've been many a times. I think I've been since like 2017 or 18 was my first time going, and I've been on and off a few times since there. I've never driven a car at the event. I've never raced there, but maybe someday. Probably not. With my car at the current way that it is, with the way that the rules fit 2Js and stuff, and just, that's a whole nother different topic. But they've added some different things. This year they added the dual clutch trans class, which is pretty cool. DCT for the first time. They didn't have DCT last year. But pretty cool that DCT has been really pushed, and I think that makes a lot of sense. What did they do for the tree? That's always the big red flag to me, is what is the tree that they use? Do they use a 400 or are they using a Sportsman tree? 500 full Sportsman tree. Interesting. So it's not your typical 400 Pro tree. What is a 500 full Sportsman tree? It must just be a Sportsman and they say 500, and I've just not heard it that way. But Sportsman, you know, the orange lights go doot, 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 and then green, so you really know when it's coming, and that's just because the DCT guys need that time to get the car to do its DCT stuff. You see, like, you know, oh, I was like, what are the vehicle exemptions? But it's on about turbo locations and stuff. Must have 17-inch or larger diameter wheels on front and rear. Interesting. So no 15-inch wheels allowed. Cars that fit are GTRs, twin turbo RSs, TTRSs, RS3s, GT500s, C8 Corvettes, Porsches, a ton of cool things kind of fit that. So that makes it very interesting. I think this is it's obviously, you know, trying to stick with the times. You can't just run the same classes forever. You have to evolve them and change them. You stick with the same, theme and underlying idea of the event, but then you add things like this as you go. I'm sure there's other DCT cars that I'm not really thinking about, but that doesn't mean that there's other DCT cars. Obviously, the Lambos and stuff like that obviously fit. There's also a bunch of rules on how the turbos, I guess, fit, and some of the chassis stuff. All cars must retain complete stock chassis, floorboard, firewall, and frame rails, which does make a lot of sense. Of course, you can't have a full chassis DCT car. That's what they're trying to keep out, because, you know, once you put, I don't know how much money there is to win. I don't know if it's been announced yet, but once you put a large payout on something like this, suddenly somebody's going to figure out how to put a DCT trans in a, a Pro Mod or something. Okay, where is it? 10 grand to win. Probably not enough to put a DCT in your car, but maybe. It definitely makes it fairly interesting. What's the biggest class to win? Outlaw versus Extreme is 50 grand this year. Was it 50 grand last year? That's awesome. That's a huge paycheck. But what else did they say? It said something about turbos. Where was that? Billet blocks are allowed. Interior must have OEM dash. Door cards and carpet. Passenger seat and rear seats may be removed. Must run all OEM glass. OEM non-glass windshield is permitted. Must have power windows. This is a very street car class. This is interesting because it'll bring in, cars like maybe like a UGR Huracan, or their R8 that's been 200 and something miles an hour, like fast shit. That makes it really cool, and I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure that the new Supra isn't a DCT car anyways, right? Can anybody confirm that? And the BMW stuff, not DCT. Those don't fit this. Am I wrong? I don't know all the cars that really extensively fit. Yeah, it's just an 8 HP, right? Yeah, it's not DCT stuff. I don't know what else would really be in the ballpark of what will be some of the faster DCT stuff. I don't think the C8 is quite even near the level of the R8s and the Huracans and the GTRs, but maybe they'll eventually get there. Maybe. I mean, I've been saying maybe since 2019, and still holding on hope that eventually those C8s will do something cool. But here we are, still holding on hope. Any day now, Chevy. You guys can do something cool whenever you want. We're all patiently waiting. Are we just going to skip the C8 being cool and go right to the C9? I know I say that on the back of them obviously doing cool things on the Nurburgring, but I live in the US and I don't go to the Nurburgring, so it doesn't really help me, nor do I own a ZR1. But regardless, the quarter mile stuff is so accessible, and the Nurburgring stuff is so inaccessible that yes, it makes it cool to talk about the Nurburgring all the time, but again, it's so inaccessible that it kind of like, when you step back, you're like, oh, I mean, yeah, it's just like the Nurburgring though. When you're actually using these cars day to day, the quarter mile stuff is way better. Even like, people compare the ZR1 to like, say, a GT2 RS. GT2 RS might be one of the best cars of all time, but for everyday daily use, that car is not going to be as enjoyable to drive as say, you know, like a ZR1X, because that thing's going to leave from the stoplight. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be fast. Like, it's going to be more enjoyable in the day-to-day use. Even like the GT3 RSs. Everyone that I know that gets a GT3 RS, they really love them. They look so good. They're ripping on them. And then they sell them pretty quickly because they realize, especially in Florida, that it is an on-ramp, off-ramp car. You're getting on the on-ramp, you're pulling all the G's, and then you get on the on-ramp and you're like, bah. And then you get like a Turbo S, and you're like, oh, this is like a daily driver. This is like the enjoyable car, something actually fun. And then, you know, you get what you get. You get like a better car in the end of the day. That's just my opinion. I mean, the Porsche is probably a better car, but it's not like, yeah, it's not a, it's not that stoplight to stoplight car. You get what I mean? That's how I feel about that car. Sorry, I got distracted there, extremely. But let's talk about the rest of the World Cup. So obviously all the rules came out, and the nice thing about the World Cup rules is they tell you what changed from this year from last year. So this year, basically, the rule books are, I think there's even a different class. See, I didn't extensively go through this because I wanted to go through it together as a group, even though I've not raced it in quite some time. I've never raced it, but I don't plan to race it this year. I like rules. I like the structure of drag racing and why things are done and the nerdy bits of it. There's not really anything on all motor drastically changed, which all motor is cool, but it's also kind of not that cool. It's like kind of boring in a way. I hate to break it to them because it's really difficult to run, but it is cool at the same time. So front wheel drive. They have the new rules added, obviously, are K-Series can use an OEM block, but everything else, not everything else, but K-Series can use an OEM block that is not billet, but all other engines have to use a billet block or aluminum or iron block, which is kind of interesting because if there's also other cars that are not just Hondas, which is weird, but I guess all those are iron. So you have a few of the other cars that run in there is the front wheel drive, obviously, SRT4 Neon, that's an iron block car. Then you also have, there's been Volkswagens in the past that have ran at World Cup. I don't think they've ran in front wheel drive, but they have ran at World Cup. Those I assume would also be iron block. 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 5-cylinder, all are allowed. But then the big rule is the fluid retention rule. Full engine diaper, obviously. $1,000 fine if you oil down the track. Now, a lot of people are pretty happy about that. $1,000 fine if you oil down the track at World Cup, only in the front wheel drive class. That's been the biggest contention I think I've seen is if you oil down the track in another class, you don't have to pay $1,000, which I feel like kind of could just go for everyone. If, you know, it could just be a posted rule across the board. I don't think it has to be just front wheel drive only. I think you could say, well, anybody that does it, and then you don't have to single out the front wheel drive guys. If it's anything over 5 minutes, which any amount of oil I feel like is going to be over 5 minutes, my first thought is it's going to be hilarious to watch the driver get out with a mop and clean up his own oil mess if he does oil down the track, keep the mop with you. Like if you're in a front-wheel drive car, keep the mop with you. Give your crew guy a mop just in case. And then they can, be a little more on it so you don't have to worry about the struggle of paying $1,000. And then the way that they kind of enforce that is you won't get to make another pass until you pay the $1,000. And if you don't pay the $1,000, you will not be able to register again for World Cup. So you're basically just banned from the event if you don't do it. But that rule, as some of the podcasters are listening, might have already changed. It got a lot of pushback. A lot of the pushback seemed like it came from the people that don't actually race the class. The Bill of Block stuff seemed to get more pushback, honestly. So we'll see if those rules change. It'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. I know Jason Miller already said, come Monday, he's gonna look at things, and then depending on what happens Monday, he will figure out. Depending on what happens, he'll make a rule change Monday potentially, or sometime before the tickets go on sale, which the tickets go on sale sometime in the middle of August. So rules came out yesterday, then sometime in this month, the rest of the sale happens. And you have to prove your time slip. You have to send a slip, a video, something like that to actually prove that you've done the time that is required for the class that you're entering. You can't just say, well, I'll buy for Outlaw vs. Extreme with my 10-second car just so I can go make some laps at World Cup and qualify somewhere. No. You have to prove it so that they don't get, deal with a bunch of, random people signing up for classes they don't fit in, which is, again, great if you have an event that has the luxury to do that, which is awesome. I hope more events have the luxury to be more selective and pick and choose who is in or not, because I think that's the best way to get the best show, and the show is kind of half of it. I mean, obviously this event survives off of having full stands, so you have to think about what can get you the best show. That's why sometimes rules get bent. And I think it was 2023 one time, rule popped up. I probably have a screenshot of it somewhere, and it was like El Camino with twin 88s and a big block prohibited at this weight. Like, it was written in there for Garrett. And then there was also something in another rule written in for Doug Cook at Motion Raceworks. And they write things in like that sometimes, very rarely, for certain people because it adds to the show, and you want people there that put on a show. Whether you agree or not, it's just kind of how it works. They do have to look out for what gets people in the seats, puts butts on the seats, and what gets people watching the live feed. And if that's what does it, that's what does it. It's very similar to FD trying to get like an Adam LZ on so that they can get more people watching the live feeds and more people going to watch the events. Is racing going more towards that way? I think that's actually a whole nother topic I should really dive into. Racing being a popularity contest. I could probably do a whole video on that, but it would probably get some people. It would be impossible to do a video titled, "Is drag racing a popularity contest?" without angering my friends. I don't think I would anger them, like, publicly. Like, they wouldn't, like, I don't know if it would be, like, angering my friends, or if it would be, like, taking shots at people that I know and care about a lot. And this is not to say I don't like them and they, everybody takes advantage of what they got. But you have to recognize the reality of things and recognize popularity contests. And I've been fortunate enough to be on the receiving end of that. I've gotten into events and I've gotten good parking and I've been in the right rooms and locations because of popularity or anything like that. So, looking in the mirror a little bit, but it's a topic worth discussing and owning and accepting, I would say. But yeah, that's kind of that's a whole can of worms. We'll save that for a little bit. And they got Warriors versus Tres Cuatro. I think my favorite class at World Cup is either Wild Street or Stick Shift. I would say, how fast was Wild Street last year? Let me see. Results. That's the other nice thing about World Cup, that they show the results from the year before, all the years before. Last year was a Coyote in Wild Street that went 740 versus a 788 Supra. It was a 90 Supra. That's why I like Wild Street. It's very street car. I mean, the car that won it last year was on airbags. He won it pretty easily from my recollection. It was not a whole difficult win for him. He kind of cleaned up that class, Joe Glockner in his Mustang, but it was, I mean, he made it to the end. He made it happen. But again, a car on air ride was able to win that class because it's also heavy. That's why the Mustangs win, because they're able to, you can't rule the Mustangs out because they can get away with small turbos, they're heavy, and they're, what's the other one? They're heavy, they can get away with small turbos, and even like this one's IRS, so you can't really do much about that. Like, it's really hard to rule them out. Like, factory style suspension does really good. It's really hard to kick them out of a class that also wouldn't end up kicking other cars out of the same class. That is the unfortunate thing about it. And Eagle definitely can't compete in radial versus the world. Yeah, I don't know if it would be... No, Eagle probably wouldn't be competitive in RVW. Not as it sits. Obviously, it could be changed pretty heavily, but I think RVW runs like 350s. That'd be a really hefty stretch for that car. It could probably qualify for RVW, which isn't that difficult. I think that's like a 370. You could easily qualify. RVW has pretty small car counts. I don't think it would be a front runner in RVW. That would be what you mean. I don't think it could win at like a really competitive RVW class. Maybe at like one where some of the other guys don't show up. You know, something like a Stevie Fast or a Ned Dunphy or Ken Cartuccio type of car doesn't show up. It could have a really good chance, but again, that car might just not have the layout for that. Nothing happened to the podcast. It's just summertime. The studio is really hot, even though there's AC in it. There's nobody around because it's summertime and everybody's not doing car stuff. They're doing boat stuff, or they're up north, or they're not in Bradenton racing. The track's closed. It's kind of just how it works this time of year. It's nothing that isn't standard for summertime. Every summer pretty much happens like this in Bradenton. And then stick shift. Did they change any stick shift rules? Let's see. Stick shift is obviously one of everybody's favorite classes. Who doesn't like watching stick shift? Front wheel drive cars are prohibited in stick shift. Very interesting. They added with pig mat, engine diaper with pig mat to everything, which is interesting. Pig mat is just really absorbent. And I've always had that in my engine, my belly pan anyways. So it doesn't really change anything there for me. 28 by 10.5 radial slick is allowed in stick shift, so not a whole lot changed. Do you guys like World Cup? Is this like a just me thing that I get hyper fixated on things like this? The other flip side is, though, yeah, I don't know why they would prohibit front-wheel drive. It doesn't really make much sense. I guess maybe they just, yeah, I don't know. The other thing that I like to point out when talking about these rules is they really are, when you boil it down, they are index classes. Now, all class racing is index racing, whether people want to believe it or not. So, they set what they want the class to go at. Say, Wild Street. They want it to be, I already forgot what the last results were for Wild Street. Besides, like, stick shift. Stick shift's actually heads-up racing. But, I mean, they're all heads-up. But stick shift's actually, like, run what you brung type of racing. So, Wild Street. The car last year went 735 was its fastest, I believe. Oh, no. There was a 719. There was a 720. There was a 727. We'd have to see the qualifying sheet. 713 was the fastest. And the guy that won it went 713. That's where they want that class. Maybe even slow it down. Maybe even like try to slow it down a little bit. But they are trying to make it index. They're trying to keep all of these classes at the speed that they want. But instead of telling you what speed, they just make the rules in a certain way that makes it that speed. And if somebody goes 690 in Wild Street, they're gonna slow that car down for the next race. That was a fluke deal. That was a misstep in rules. So they're really secret index classes where the promoters know what the rules are, what the index is supposed to be, but the racers kind of have to guess. It's like, oh, I don't know. Hopefully I got enough. They don't truly know. You can base it off of what others have done, but it's really, really prevalent in something like radial tire racing. So if you look at Ultra Street, I think it's like a 440 class. All those cars pretty much go 440s. If anybody goes faster than 440s, maybe it's not a 440, maybe it's like something around there. If anybody goes faster than 440s, guess what? Next event shows up and you get 20 pounds put on you. Oh, you went too fast again? Guess what? Now you got less nitrous. They're going to slow you down to be in the index. And that's just how it is. They're all index classes. And it's fine to recognize that, but I think it's worth recognizing. But people don't want to admit that. They're like, no. Heads up. It's like, yeah, but to a certain point, except for stick shift, because they're not really going to slow you down. You can really do what you want in stick shift. Besides, I think you're not allowed to have a big block, which does technically slow the class down. There's not anybody that has that combo that you can look to know if the class is that fast, but that's the only real class that kind of breaks out of that mold of being slowed down to where the promoters want it. Let's see. Small block V8 and V10 only. Yeah, so it doesn't look like. Yeah, I mean, they're keeping tube chassis cars out of it, which is fair. I mean, they just want the class to look like cars and not sit like pro mods. But it doesn't look like it. Yeah, so run what you brung is really just stick shift. They could put an Ultima class. That would be, maybe that would help the cleanups. Okay, I think World Cup's exhausted you guys enough, I would say. Let's talk about the 1320 video giveaway. 1320 video. I made a video before talking about it, a TikTok. and I got like 6 pieces of information wrong, just because that sometimes happens when I start just like spewing. I hit record and like there's a second where I don't know anything, and then I have to like re-understand. So they're giving away a R34 Skyline and a 93 Cobra, Fox body Cobra. Blue, what is it? Bayside blue Skyline, but it is just a GTT, It's really cool. But it's not a GTR, and then the Mustang obviously is not a Cobra R, which would probably be, I think one sold recently. When did a Cobra R? Didn't one sell on Bring a Trailer? Like a low, like a, that's a 2000. It's also got a Vortex supercharger, which is kind of cool. Okay, so a red one on Bring a Trailer with 66 miles on it sold for $211,000 in 2024. So that's why it's not a Cobra R, because they're $200,000 cars. And then there was a teal one that sold recently too, for I think somewhere in that same kind of ballpark. But same with the GTR. If this was a real GTR, this spec, it would probably sell for $250,000. Let's see, Bring a Trailer. What does a GTR like that go for? 250 maybe? I know Kyle in his video said 150, but I feel like it's more for an old Nissan with a crap motor. GTR R34, and you can import them into the US, right? 25 years old. Did Trump fix that? GTR V-Spec. Oh, these all sold in Australia. Oh, this one sold in the US. This is a 99 V-Spec, $315,000, purple, midnight purple 2 for 315 grand. Dang. That's healthy. 315. R34 V-Spec 2. Yeah, that's what this one is. This is a V-Spec. Midnight Purple 2. Is Midnight Purple 2 the one that everybody likes, or is Midnight Purple 3? I feel like Midnight Purple 2 is more purple. I feel like Midnight Purple 3 has way more is way more darker. Way more darker. Yeah, I went to school for many, many years, and I say things like way more darker. American education system. It got me. Roped me in. Maybe has Cars and Bids ever sold one? Where's a good place to look up values of cars like this? Let's see. R34. Okay, Cars and Bids has one right now. Bid up to 60,000, silver. Let's see. Oh, here's a blue one, 6-speed. It sold for 130. Okay, so not too bad. A GTR, obviously it's 6-speed. Just seemed like the first thing that popped out. I don't know why it was so eye-catching. Here's another one, sold for 126. So it's about 150. They're both the blue US titled cars. ChatGPT. That's probably a good spot. I know in Australia, don't they sell for crazy money? But I think Australia's market's pretty cooked on a lot of things. I think their dollars are cooked. Maybe is that what it is? Like Canada's? No, it's not like ours is any better. I prefer an R32 anyways. Personally, I mean they're way cheaper. $34,000 for an R32, way better looking car, and not gigantic either, which is nice. I think the R34 seems like a huge car. I would either be a 32 or a 35 guy. But I feel like if I had an R35, I'd have to be way more Asian and maybe have like a mohawk. Is that kind of the right stereotype? Maybe I'm not. I don't know. Definitely not Asian. Not Southeast Asian, at least. Maybe like Western Asian at most. Oh wait, I kind of missed. I wanted to see, what are R35s? I always think about R35s because they keep coming down in price. You know, they're like 60 grand now. 60 grand, 70 grand gets you an R35. This one, 2014, pearl white, 23,000 miles, sold for 72 grand. That's a lot of car for 72 grand. There's still something it was probably propaganda, but there's something that always gets me about the R35s. It might have just been Fast and the Furious propaganda, but I don't know. There's just something special about them. You guys agree? Even though I know in my heart they're probably not as good. I mean, I know they aren't as good, and I know they cost a bunch, and they're not as good as I would want, but I can't really talk about a Bronco Sport because it's not something I know much about. It doesn't seem like you do either. Bronco Sports are the small car one. I'm sure it's fine. It's kind of just like any other small car at this point in the US. They're just like all the same. It's less bland than other small cars, but it is still equally bland and also a small car, like all of the other ones. The Nismo Juke, definitely slept on. You know what else is slept on? Wow, $8,200 gets you a Juke. That's probably a great daily driver. 211 horsepower, $8,200, all-wheel drive, red seat inserts, gets you a Juke. Whew. You know what else is a really slept-on daily driver? A Ford Taurus SHO. SHO. The most recent one. Yeah. $9 grand gets you 365 horsepower, twin-turbo V6, all-wheel drive. Come on. That's pretty awesome. I mean, that's a solid unit. And you look like a cop? Who doesn't want to look like a fake cop? You know? I would totally daily one of those. Who's Nismo Nick? That's quite a name. It does bring me to one of my topics that I like to talk about is don't brand yourself as a car. Don't brand yourself, like Nismo Nick might be a great guy. I don't know him. But people do this a lot where they're like, Coyote Kyle. And it's like, come on. You might not always brand yourself just as your name. Like, you don't have to be. Yeah, and the shows were really good at tuning. But you don't have to brand yourself as the car you have now. I almost made that mistake one time. I thought about branding myself with the Cadillac CTSV stuff. And I avoided it. I got away from it. Thankfully, because it would have been a huge blunder of marketing and just yeah, the branding is a bit much. Yeah, and people do it all the time. I mean, if you type in on Instagram, what's the worst one? Coyote or Mustang or 5.0, it's always something like that. And they can't shake it. People end up dying. We're gonna have tombstones with people's sorry, B18 boy. But we're gonna have tombstones with people that have, SHO Mike on there. C10 Addict. Hate to break it to you, bud, but we all have names. They're all given to us at birth, Some people change them, but you could just go by that. And I'm a big fan of just going by that. But let's talk a little bit about the Nurburgring. I feel like I'm up to my eyeballs with Nurburgring knowledge. It's probably been searched in my computer more in the last week than ever. And mostly just to troll people. Not even being really serious. It's just mostly just to mess with people. Multimatic and Chevy were going at it. Yes, Multimatic, Canadian-based company, and Chevy, American-based-ish company, were going at it to see who can have the fastest American-made production car on the ring. Yes, Multimatic doesn't really make theirs on an assembly line. Yes, it has a Ford body on it, and it looks like a Ford from 20 feet away, but it is really not a Ford. It's more of a kit car that they bought like a body in white from, and then they turned it into, Canadian VIN. It's got a 2 in the VIN number, so it's not really an American car. I think all of the Ford Mustangs are made in Ohio at, can't remember the factory, something River factory, but they all have a 1 VIN number, and then suddenly, there's this one Mustang that comes out of Canada with a 2 VIN number. And we're supposed to believe that that's still just the Ford Mustang like everything else? Huh? I don't want an eagle killer. We're supposed to buy into that propaganda that this is just like everything else? No, I'm not buying it. That's a Multimatic car. It's like the AMG 1. The AMG 1 Mercedes that has the 622 on the ring. It's not a Mercedes. It may have a Mercedes engine, but it's built by Multimatic. The GTD is built like a GT3 car by Multimatic, and that's not a bad thing, actually. Actually, that's why it's worth money. That's why it's so good, because it's built not by Ford. It's built by Multimatic. That's what you want. I want a car built by Multimatic, of course. I would way rather a car built by Multimatic. That's the marketing. That's the sell point, is that this isn't built by us, guys. If Jim Farley got up there and said, guys, this isn't a Ford. It's a GT3 car built by Multimatic. People would line up. Millionaires would line up to buy that thing. They'd be banging on the door of Multimatic to get that thing. Yeah, the $400K price tag, but that's like, I mean, come on. There's so many people that have $400K cars. It's not even, it's like, yeah, $400K, like, I'm throwing that away, but like, it is just $400K. There's a lot of people with $400,000 cars. I mean, look at how many twin-turbo R8s there are, and twin-turbo Huracans. Those are $250,000 cars with another 200 grand basically put into them. Yeah, they make 2,000 horsepower. Sure, the Multimatic car makes 815 or something. Sure, it's a lot cooler. But there's still a lot of people with that. And with some options, I mean, you know, they got Jay Leno to get one and tell his same story about his dad buying a Ford and him getting to spec it out. And, you know, they got to do that whole video. You gotta love Jay Leno. Jay Leno's videos could be 20% shorter if he didn't tell the same story over and over again. And I like Jay Leno and all, but it's tiring in a way. Maybe some people like hearing the same story over and over again. But it definitely gets slightly old as a viewer. But good for him, because, you know, he gets to enjoy all of his cars, and he gets to see all these cool cars, and he gets to, all the money that he makes from his videos go right back to the production team that puts on the video. So basically, he's just like, it's just to make the videos. He's not really gaining anything from it besides probably notoriety with the manufacturers and, you know, staying relevant, I guess you could say. And then he gets to show off all of his cars. But what did he make? $60 million a year for the last 10 years of his career? He's probably good. If you want my opinion on a car, just put it in the chat and I'll potentially get to it. But the ZR1, I don't think is the ZR1X. I don't think is the end of the line. I think that they could realistically, like Misha said, get some time off that at the ring. Misha does all the Nurburgring stuff, and he watched the video and he sat there and he went through it all and he was like, yeah, they could probably shave 10 seconds off by just doing this, 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 and this. And he didn't just like, say, oh, they could take 10 seconds off. No, like he broke down every part and he was like, this could have been done this different, this different, this different. And like throughout, like probably found 10 seconds if he was just coaching that driver, which is pretty interesting. I mean, he was literally just broke it down to what you could do. So it would be interesting to see if they can get it into the 30s with a different driver. I don't know who that driver would be. If they could get that Porsche factory driver, he seems like a badass. Ford definitely had a better driver. I think that was clear in the videos that Ford's driver was far, far better. I think the X is negligible when you're on a racetrack like that. I think once you're moving and at speed, the weight doesn't really help you all that much, and I don't think the all-wheel drive does all that much. I think downforce, if anything, would be more useful than the front motor being active, because you could kind of tell, I think it was only, 2 seconds faster than the regular rear-wheel drive one. So I don't think it would do a whole lot in that aspect. But sometimes they just say things and the word doesn't match the word I said it before. 5 seconds for sure, I would say, with a pro driver. Like, almost guaranteed. If you missed the podcast, I will say I post a lot of other videos where I sit here and I talk about single topics of interest, and that honestly has a little bit more, I think, impact, because instead of like an hour and a half of me talking like this where things get lost, I think I can actually talk directly to the people looking for that exact topic with a 10 to 15 minute topic based video on the Bogetti Clips YouTube channel. And I've been having a lot of fun with that because it's, like I said, it allows me to explore a topic in depth and then give the information right away without any hoopla, you could say. Yeah, I don't do this often live on TikTok. Maybe I should do it more. Yes, that's on YouTube. Bogetti Clips YouTube channel has a ton of other topic-based videos that vary in amount of views. There was an MR2 post I want to answer. The Gen 2 MR2 is one of the best looking Japanese cars, I think, personally. I think that car, Kyle's, is awesome. I think that car looks so good, and it just like, it has this like, it's like puts out an aura into the air that you just smell that car looks like fun to drive. It just gives you that feel of like a turbo MR2 just looking like a fun, enjoyable car, like it's not like a Miata. It doesn't give you that feel of like, oh, I need to go get my hair done. It gives you that feel of like, oh, that'd be fun on a mountain road. That would be enjoyable, up a hill or something like that. Not overpowered, which is nice. Not over chassied. It just seems like the Japanese Toyota way that they matched the two. And that's almost a feel you get right away. Like, it's just the feeling, like I said, it almost is in the air. Like, it hits you when you see it. Yeah, Kyle's basically in the same boat as me. There ain't no racing going on. It's too hot to work on anything. He hasn't posted many videos. He actually just dropped off my trailer yesterday because him and Brent borrowed it to bring the dual motor, the dual motor Prelude back up north because it was too hot that they didn't want to drive it up north. His house is in Bradenton, his other house is in Tampa. They didn't want to drive it, but they wanted to put nitrous on it in the shop. So yeah, it's too hot for working on cars. But we do have like 30 days or something until FL2K, so that's really fun. I can't even imagine drag racing right now with this type of heat, but it does seem like it's coming up on us real fast. We haven't had a hurricane yet either, knock on wood. I'm sure that's coming soon enough. Somebody also asked my favorite European car. I want to just point out like a supercar or a hypercar, but I feel like that's so lame. But like, I always have a soft spot for them. Like, even like things like a Veyron. I always got a soft spot for a Veyron or like a Koenigsegg or something like that. But it's kind of like a cliche. But at the same time, you know, it's like, it just makes it. How do you not like a Veyron? Mullet isn't going to make it. Does Mullet even fit a class at FL2K? I don't even know. Thoughts on 4-cylinder Silverado? That sounds like a crime. Do they have a 4-cylinder? They do, right? It's diesel, isn't it? I hate Chevy sometimes. Why do they do shit like this? I'm sure it's such a bad 4-cylinder too. It's like an Ecotec. What else would fall under like a cool... What's like a cool European, like... yuck. What's like a cool European car? Like a Cosworth, maybe? That also sounds kind of cliche. What is it? The Ford Cosworth RS? Yeah, I mean, those are freaking cool. I would definitely own one of them. Didn't Ken Block have one that was pretty sick? The Escort Cosworth? Yeah. See, I would own one of those. Or like, yeah, some of the Audi stuff. I feel like they're big on like the hatches. And like hot hatches. CT4V Blackwing over a CTSV. Like a Gen 2 or Gen 3 CTSV. So the question proposed here is CT4V Blackwing versus CTSV. You'd have to specify what generation CTSV, but non-dogged G35, not possible. No such thing as a non-dogged out G35. They're all clapped. They're like the equivalent of a Nissan Altima for like how people treat them. Yeah, hate to break it to you. They're rough. Third Gen V. CT4V Blackwing. Yeah, don't those have the V6s in them? Yeah, I'm out on that. The Cadillacs need a big engine. That's just my opinion. They need the torque, they need the horsepower, they need the responsiveness of a big engine. It just, yeah, doesn't do it for me. I would pick the V3 over the Blackwing. Not doing the V6 in the Cadillac. I want the bad gas mileage. I want the rumble. Maybe it might be a better motor. It might make more power, but not a fan. Not a fan. It doesn't work in that car. And the only way you can actually get a sedan in the US anymore, basically, is if you go to Cadillac. If you want an American sedan, you have to go to Cadillac. Because Chevy only offers the Malibu that they've offered for the last 38 years since I've been born. Since before I was born. And then also Ford has no sedan right now. I don't think Lincoln has any sedan right now. And you just can get a Cadillac. That's it. That's all. SRS with the 6-liter. Now, a little history with my SRS experience. So, SSR, the truck. SSR truck, right? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, the SSR. They got very hot. The cooling wasn't great. The radiator's kind of hidden in there. When I used to spend all my time at Faster Problems with Jeremy, he tuned a lot of these. Like, I don't know how it worked out, but there's a close-knit community, as you might imagine. All of the owners have visors with the fake hair. You know what I'm talking about? Like the visor that you can wear with like the fake head of hair on top. All of them own those because they unironically wear them ish. They're all very good people, and he tuned a ton of them. They basically had no mods to them, but he would tune them, and they were all well kept, always. They all had excessive amounts of chrome and like knickknacks on them. You can only you can't call them upgrades or like performance anything enhancements or cosmetic enhancements. They were basically just knickknacks that they would just like double-sided tape onto places, and it would be the funniest thing of all time. But I loved seeing them every single time because I'd sit in there sometimes as he's tuning them and like check it out with him, and we'd like mess around and take it on the street, like because you got to street tune it, make sure that it's good. And it just it was always funny. Those cars are cool. The bed of them is almost useless because the fenders are hard to get into. They got like a 6-foot long bed cover. You got like, I think one owner had a stick so he could get the thing, like a stick with a hook, so he could get the things out. And I don't know. I always liked them. I always thought they were cool. I always thought it was like it's a car that showed a brand taking a risk. And any time that a brand will actually take a risk and not just produce the same thing like every other brand, it's worth noting of that being cool. Yeah, they're like an elevated Corvette owner. But again, it's like the Prowler. They took a risk. They didn't take enough of a risk with the Prowler and didn't put the V8 in it like Chip Foose told them to, but they took a risk. So you are a Benz guy. I gotta ask, does current Mercedes-Benz have the worst lineup of any other time in Mercedes-Benz history? I was on their website the other day and everything is so ugly. Every time I see a Mercedes on the road, it just looks horrible. It just has no flavor to it, no like feel to it. It's just like, It looked like I don't know, it looked like AI designed. Like their electric lineup I know is selling so poorly and nobody wants them. But it's not a good look. Like they're not good looking cars. And maybe I'm alone on that, but it just seems really uninspired lately. And maybe that's because that's what they think people want because they see like some Chinese cars like that. And I'm sure the interiors are nice, but they're just, I don't know. They just don't do it anymore. They had such a good lineup in like pre-2018, like you're saying, like maybe like 2012. I would look at these and like, man, that's a nice car. Like I always liked that, but then it just kind of fell off. And some of the old diesel stuff is obviously awesome. You can even look at kind of the downfall of like Volvo in the same conversation of like Volvo was really great for a long time and then China bought it and now it's kind of like it's turned into just like a Chinese car brand. So it's like meh. But yeah, I don't know. Do you like WK1, bro? What is WK1? SRT8? Oh. I'm not a Jeep guy. I've never really liked Jeeps. I don't know. I mean, they're probably a cool car for the right money. They make some noises. They're loud, right? I had a neighbor with a silver one. Well, I guess like 90% of them I think feel like they're silver. They're cool. They're again a cool version of a car company taking a risk when others weren't doing things like that. And I think Dodge was always really cutting edge on that stuff, and they kind of forced other brands to do the same thing, which I really appreciate. What do you think of Mullet 2.0? My first thought when they did that was actually kind of like sad because it was a great chassis and they could have just left it and taken the motor out and like Cameron could have just built a whole new car because they didn't really keep anything or reuse anything from what it looks like. I'm not as up to date on the videos as some people, but they could have just built a new chassis, it felt unnecessary to use Mullet at all. It felt like they were just destroying it just so that it wasn't sitting around any longer. Right? Would you guys agree that it didn't need to be destroyed? They could have left 1.0 and just built another 2.0 and had two Mullets. One radial drag and drive tire car, one big tire car that, you know, big tires are kind of meh, not really my thing. I would imagine most of you guys agree on big tire stuff. But, I mean, that aside, it's going to be really awesome. Everything that Cameron Johnson does. I've known Cameron for probably 10 years now, I would say. Maybe not that long. Probably 7 years, 8 years now. And he's always done some of the best work that I've seen. The first time I met Cameron was I went to a fab shop with Leroy. We were dropping Leroy off, and Garrett handed him a camera, and he said, "Hey, film the progress." And I was like, huh, he doesn't know how to film anything. Like, what do you mean film the progress? And he was just like, hey, you just point it, click it, here are some extra batteries. And I was like, that's kind of a big ask for your fab guy, but hey. And he filmed it. Really great job filming it too. And Cameron did like the whole turbo kit for the most part and a bunch of the cage work. And Troy, who was also at Cameron's for a long time, did a bunch of it. And Matt from ProFab also did a whole lot of it. So that was my first experience, and I was like, wow, everything always worked very well. But it was just cool to see the progress, because then he was just working for somebody. Now he has like 10 guys, successful YouTube channel. I love to see that kind of stuff explode, and I'm glad that his YouTube channel exploded that much. I think he obviously does the work to deserve it. It does make me a little sad, because when there's only so many good fab shops that build chassis, and he was building chassis and now he stopped because, you know, they got inundated with other stuff. So there's less fab shops building chassis now, which is a little sad, and I think many people can understand that. Even like people, Tin Soldiers, they stopped working on like full chassis cars. I think they stopped working on cars at all, and they're just part sales. That kind of stuff is tough for the automotive industry, because you need both. You need the guys that sell parts and the guys that work on cars. But nobody wants to work on cars and do fabrication full time. There's not that much money in it. It's a tough way to make a full-time deal. So it ends up balancing the other way. And then the fab shops get to name their price, and they always get to, because fab guys are worth their weight in gold, literally, probably more. But the balance, we need more fab shops. Any fab shop worth their weight, worth their salt, is a year out. Any good fab shop. At least for the longest time they were. I don't know, right now I haven't gotten anything done, but for the longest time they were way out on things. And if a fab shop isn't a year out, you should probably turn around. They're not the shop for you. That's why Garrett had to hire Ty, because he literally couldn't rely on fab shops because they were so backlogged on things that you needed to just hire in your own. It's just kind of the nature of the beast if you want to be quick at creating content. Would you ever go the pro mod kind of route like Eagle and Vic? I wouldn't say never. I just don't want that big of an operation. I mean, even if I had the cash flow to do it, I don't know if I would. I don't currently have the cash flow to do that, because pro mod racing ain't for the tight-walleted individuals like me. I'm a little too tightly walleted. Maybe I would just have to really commit to a bunch of sponsors and stuff, and it just requires a lot of team. That's half of it. Honestly, if you're not a good manager, you're not going to have a good pro mod program. Like, it's a managerial position. to run a team like that. You have to be able to delegate, able to like create systems and manage and like the whole nine. It's not just like get in the car and race. Like it's a serious commitment, like running a business. So yeah, not sure if I'm super interested in that anytime soon. I like my little program the way that it is. Maybe someday I'll get an engine back and I'll really like my program again. But until I have an engine, I don't know. Well, that's probably the end of this live. I think I've been going long enough. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was a blast. If you guys are listening on the podcast, remember, the live feed is The Bogettis, is Bogetti Bunch. That's where I did the live. And if you want to switch from the live and watch this back, go to Bogetti Studios to hear the podcast. And that's it. That's where you guys are all at. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys had a good time, and I will see you next time.